And this year is no different.
This gives him much room to get open.
Harris finding room again.
When NBA legends were asked about Darryl Dawkins, many remembered a player who was called too raw, too wild, and too powerful for his own era. Some people said he never reached the level they wanted from him. They called him unfinished. They said he had so much talent and let part of it slip away. For years, one word followed him everywhere. That word was potential. People used it to praise him, and people used it to put him down. But those same things that made him hard to figure out are the very things that made him impossible to forget. He did not just play basketball, he changed what basketball could look like and feel like. And as we go back to the force that made grown men step out of the way, use the hype feature and give this video some hype. Because Dawkins played the game like every dunk was a warning. They called him Chocolate Thunder. He was a giant whose dunks scared defenders, broke glass, and pushed the league to change its own equipment. Long after he stopped playing, the greatest names in the sport still talked about him. This story is not only about points and rebounds, it is about power and joy. It is about fear and style. It is about race, money, pressure, and legacy. It is about a man who was bigger than his stats and louder than his critics. So let us go back to the start, before the broken backboards and the famous nicknames, to a young giant from Florida who was about to change the game forever. Darryl Dawkins grew up in Orlando, Florida. He came from a large family of 11 children. Money was hard to find. He watched his mother and his grandmother work without stopping just to make ends meet. They gave everything they had, and still life was a struggle. A young boy sees that kind of work. He carries it with him, and for Dawkins, it turned into a goal that was bigger than any game. He did not dream only of fame. He dreamed of helping. He wanted to buy his mother a home. He wanted to get his family out of public housing. He wanted to pay for school for his brothers, his sisters, and his cousins. Basketball was not just a sport to him. It was a way out, and it was a way to lift everyone he loved at the same time. That weight sat on his shoulders while he was still very young. On the court, he was something people had never seen before. He played at Maynard Evans High School there. He averaged 32 points and 21 rebounds a game. Think about that for a moment. Those are not normal high school numbers. Those are the numbers of a man playing against boys. He led his team to a state championship. He was the best player on the floor every single night, and it was not even close. He did not just win games. He took them over. Scouts came to watch him, and they could not believe their eyes. One veteran scout named Tom McMahon was stunned by what he saw. He said Dawkins had the body of a 25-year-old man while he was still in high school. He could score 44 points in a game even when 2 or 3 players tried to guard him at once. He was that strong. He was that big. He was that hard to stop. But here's where the trouble started. His body made people expect too much, too soon. When a teenager looks like a grown man, people forget that he is still learning. They forget that he has not had time to grow into his skills. They saw the muscles and the size, and they decided he should already be great. They did not stop to think that greatness takes time. This was the start of the Dawkins paradox. His body promised instant greatness, but greatness is not built overnight, and he had not walked the normal road to get there. Most great players went to college first. They had years to learn, to fail, to grow, and to get better against strong competition. Dawkins would not have that. He was about to skip all of it. He was about to walk straight into a league full of grown men, and the whole world was watching to see what this powerful young giant would do. In 1975, Darryl Dawkins entered the National Basketball Association. He did something that had never been done in the modern era. He skipped college completely. He went straight from high school to the first round of the draft. He was the first player ever to do that in the modern draft era. There was no path before him. He was making one as he walked. He was drafted 5th overall by the Philadelphia 76ers. 4 players were picked ahead of him. Those players were David Thompson, David Myers, Marvin Webster, and Alvan Adams. Dawkins signed a 7-year contract worth $1 million. For a young man who had grown up with so little, that was a life-changing moment. He had reached the goal he set for his family. The boy who watched his mother struggle could now help carry the load. In one signing, the dream he had held for years became real. His size made everyone take notice. He stood 6 feet 11 inches tall. He weighed 251 pounds. He was a wall of muscle. He looked like he could move anyone he wanted to move. And that is exactly why people started to dream so big about him. But those dreams quickly turned into a heavy load. People in Philadelphia began to compare him to Wilt Chamberlain. Wilt was a legend in that city. He was one of the greatest centers who ever lived. To put that name on a rookie was not fair, and Dawkins knew it. He pushed back against the comparison. He pointed out that Chamberlain was much taller than he was. He pointed out that he had no college years to grow. People wanted him to play like a Hall of Famer the moment he stepped on the court, with no time to learn. He felt that this was simply not right. And then came that word again, potential. People loved to say it about him. They said he had so much potential. At first it sounds like a compliment, but over time it became a kind of cage. Coaches used it to say he had not done enough yet. They used it to brush aside the things he actually did well. No matter what he accomplished, the message stayed the same. You could be more. You should be more. That word followed him like a shadow he could never shake. So here was a young man who had reached the league, earned his money, and helped his family, yet still felt judged for things he had not done. He had crossed a line no one had crossed before him. But instead of getting credit for that, he was told he was not finished. The pressure was building, and his career had barely begun. His first 2 seasons in the league were not easy. He did not play many minutes. He sat on the Philadelphia bench and waited for his chance. From 1975 to 1977, his numbers were small. He averaged under 4 points and under 3 rebounds a game. He was strong, but he was raw. He played under coach Billy Cunningham, and he was learning the pro game one quiet night at a time. For a player with so much hype, those early years felt slow. The body was ready, the skills still needed time. He was a giant learning a man's game in real time, in front of a city that wanted results right away. Then, when he finally became a starter, the picture changed. From 1978 to 1982, he averaged more than 13 points and nearly 8 rebounds a game. This was his peak as an athlete. The Sixers made it to the finals more than once during these years, but the foul trouble that would follow him for his whole career was already there. He fouled too often, and it cost his team and cost him minutes. Still, this was the version of Dawkins that crowds came to see. But while his game was still growing, his personality was already huge. Dawkins was not a quiet big man who kept to himself. He was the opposite of that. He wore bright neon suits that made people stop and stare. He carried a giant boombox that weighed 70 pounds. He filled every room he walked into. He even had a famous message on his answering machine. It said, "This is the Doc and I'm ready to talk." That was who he was. He was loud, fun, and full of life. He understood something that most players of his time did not. He understood the power of a brand. Today, players build their own images all the time. Back then, almost no one did. Dawkins was ahead of his time. He played on a Philadelphia team that was loaded with stars, and he needed a way to stand out. So in 1976, he came up with an idea that was pure Dawkins. He started naming his dunks. He did not give them small names. He gave them wild, theatrical names that no one could forget. He called one the Heartstopper. He called another the Cake Shaker. He had one called the Baby Maker and another called the Spine Chiller Supreme. He even had a dunk with a name so long it became famous on its own. A wild string of rhyming words that ended with the line about being the glass breaker that he was. He had names that were long and silly and joyful. He turned a simple dunk into a show. He turned himself into a character that fans wanted to watch. In a sport full of serious faces, he brought play and color. This was a kind of showtime before showtime ever became a word in basketball. He brought flair and theater to the court before it was the normal thing to do. He gave the crowd a reason to cheer for him even when he was not the biggest star on his own team. And under all of that fun, the power was still there, waiting to be set loose. Soon, the whole league would learn just how dangerous that power could be. The dunk that made him a legend came on November 13, 1979. The 76ers were on the road playing the Kansas City Kings. Dawkins rose up over a forward named Bill Robinson and threw down a dunk with everything he had. And then it happened. The glass backboard exploded. Shards flew across the court. The crowd could not believe what they had just seen. A man had broken the backboard with his bare hands and his power alone. Then, just 3 weeks later, he did it again. On December 4, 1979, the 76ers were home at the Philadelphia Spectrum. They were playing the San Antonio Spurs. Dawkins pulled down the rim and the tempered glass shattered once more. This time it happened in front of his home crowd. The people who came to watch their team saw their own player tear the game apart with his strength. Picture those scenes for a moment. The ball goes through. The glass cracks and falls, pieces of it rain down on the floor. Players step back fast to get out of the way. Referees freeze. The whole building goes quiet for a second, and then it roars. The game has to stop. Crews come out to sweep the floor and fix the basket. Everyone in the arena knows they just watched something they will never forget. But these moments were not only highlights. They were a real problem. Flying glass is dangerous. Those sharp pieces could have hurt players, they could have hurt referees, they could have hurt fans sitting close to the court. A dunk is supposed to be exciting, not unsafe. And Dawkins was making it look like the baskets themselves could not survive his strength. There's a story he told later that shows how little people understood his power at first. Before that first shattered board, he had worried out loud that he might break the glass. His own coach waved off the idea. The coach told him that it could not happen. He even said that even Wilt could not do it. And then Dawkins went out and did the thing everyone said was impossible. Not once, but twice in a matter of weeks. The league could not ignore this. The man at the top, Commissioner Larry O'Brien, took action fast. He called Dawkins into his office for a serious talk. He told him plainly that the next shattered backboard would cost him. O'Brien said it would bring a $5,000 fine and a suspension. That was the league drawing a hard line. Dawkins's power was no longer just something people talked about over dinner. It was now a force that made the people in charge change their rules. That is how strong he was. The game itself had to bend to him. No player before him had ever forced the league to react that way. The next part of the story is one of the most amazing things about Dawkins. His power did not just break backboards. It helped change the rim forever. The league had a real safety problem on its hands. Power dunking had become more than a thrill. It had become a danger to everyone near the court. Something had to change, and it did. The answer came from a place no one would expect. It came from a small town called Loader, Illinois. There lived a man named Arthur Aratt. He was a grain elevator worker. He knew almost nothing about basketball, but he had an idea for a better rim. He took a heavy spring from a John Deere cultivator plow. He used it to build a rim that could move under pressure. The idea was simple but smart. When a heavy force pulled on the rim would bend and give way. His design could bend under about 125 pounds of force. Then it would snap right back into place. The glass would no longer take the full hit. The rim would absorb it instead. This new rim was called the breakaway rim. Aratt patented his design in 1982. The patent gave it a long official name, calling it a mount that could swing without bending out of shape. It was first used at the 1978 NCAA Final Four. Then it was tested during the 1980 to 1981 season in another league. After that, the NBA decided to bring it in for good. The league adopted the breakaway rim for the 1981 to 1982 season. With the new direct mount systems, the glass-shattering nights came to an end. The baskets could finally handle the kind of power that Dawkins brought every night. Here's the key point, and it is a big one. Darryl Dawkins did not just play above the rim. He helped change the rim itself. His strength forced the smartest people in the sport to rethink the very equipment of the game. That is a mark that almost no player ever leaves. Many players score points, many players win games, very few players change the tools the game is played with. Dawkins did exactly that, and the rims used today still carry the memory of his force. This brings us to the heart of the story. When the great names of basketball were asked about Darryl Dawkins, what did they see? They did not just see a man who broke glass. They saw a player who left a mark on every legend who crossed his path. Some loved him, some battled him, some found ways to stop him, but none of them forgot him. To be remembered by the greats is its own kind of greatness, and Dawkins was remembered by nearly all of them. Start with Shaquille O'Neal. Shaq was one of the most powerful players the game has ever seen. He broke backboard hydraulics during his own rookie season, and yet when Shaq spoke about power dunking, he pointed to Dawkins. He called Dawkins the father of power dunking. He even said that he was just one of Dawkins' sons. Think about what that means. One of the strongest players ever bowed to Dawkins as the one who came first. He gave Dawkins the credit for the whole style of play. That is respect of the highest kind. Magic Johnson remembered him too, but in a different way. Magic recalled Dawkins as the life of the party at every All-Star weekend. He was the man who made the room brighter. He brought the laughter and the joy. When the best players in the world gathered together, Dawkins was the one who set the mood. That tells you he was loved as a person, not just feared as an opponent. Charles Barkley felt the same. Barkley called him a gentle giant. He remembered a man who was always happy and who brought joy to everyone around him. For all his power on the court, off the court, Dawkins was warm and kind. He used his size to thrill crowds, not to scare the people in his life. Barkley saw the soft heart behind the strong body. Julius Erving knew him as well as anyone. Erving was Dawkins' teammate in Philadelphia. He saw him up close every day. Years later, Erving looked back on those teams and called the Dawkins-era Sixers a pretty team. They had style, they had flair, they played a game that was nice to watch. That was the world Dawkins helped create, a team built on beauty and expression. Then there was Larry Bird, and their battles were fierce. Bird was one of the toughest minds in the game. In one matchup, Dawkins hit him with a hard elbow to the chest. Bird did not back down. He got right back up. He looked at Dawkins and said his mama hit harder than that. Then he went out and scored 50 points. That was Bird's way of fighting back, with words and with brilliance. But there was another moment that showed just how strong Dawkins really was. In a different game, Dawkins hit Bird so hard that it displaced Bird's hip. The strange part is that Dawkins did not even know how badly he had hurt him. He found out the next morning when he read about the injury in the newspaper. Only then did he understand the damage. That is the kind of raw power that can hurt a great player without even meaning to. Not everyone could stop Dawkins, but some found a way. Robert Parrish of the Boston Celtics was one of them. Parrish did not try to win by pure muscle. He used his mind and his movement instead. He had a smooth turnaround jumper that let him face up and score. He ran the floor hard and denied Dawkins his rhythm. A teammate named Tiny Archibald said Parrish kept Dawkins in his pocket. Under that pressure, Dawkins might be held to one dunk or fewer in a game, while Parrish scored at will. It was proof that a smart, mobile defender could neutralize even raw power. Moses Malone was another wall that Dawkins ran into. The battle for rebounds between them was brutal. Dawkins once described fighting Malone like fighting a tentacled mollusk. He said Malone's hands were like flypaper. He said he had to fight for position every single second of a possession. Malone never let up, never rested, and never gave an inch. For Dawkins, there was no harder job on the floor than trying to keep Moses Malone off the glass. There were also the men who built him up. World B. Free was a guard who became his daily sparring partner. Every day, the two of them played hard one-on-one games. Those games gave Dawkins the confidence to dunk over even the best shot blockers, including a center like Bill Walton. It takes a partner to push a player to grow, and Free was that partner for Dawkins in the early days. And Dawkins gave praise back to those he respected. He spoke highly of his teammate Doug Collins, who he called Sticks. Dawkins believed that if Collins had not suffered so many foot injuries, he would have been as good as Larry Bird. He pointed to all the things Collins could do. He could run, jump, pass, defend, and shoot to Dawkins. That was the complete package. His words showed how much he loved smart, skilled basketball, even if his own game was built on power. So when you add it all up, the legends did not forget Darryl Dawkins. The strongest player of a later age called him a father. The biggest stars called him a friend. The toughest defenders built whole plans to slow him down. You do not plan around a man who does not matter. The fact that legends had to think so hard about how to handle him is its own kind of proof. He was important enough to fear and warm enough to love. But not every chapter of his story was full of joy. Some of it was full of pain and tension. To understand that, we go back to the 1977 NBA Finals. The Philadelphia 76ers faced the Portland Trail Blazers, and the whole series felt like more than a basketball game. It felt like two different ideas about the sport going to war. The media painted a sharp picture. Portland, built around Bill Walton, was cast as the team of old-school basketball. They were seen as the team that played the right way, with passing and teamwork. Philadelphia was cast as the team of stars and flash. With Julius Erving, George McGinnis, and Dawkins, they were seen as a team of bold, individual talent. One side was called proper, the other side was called showy. It was a clash of styles, and the country was watching. That tension boiled over in Game 2. Dawkins got into a fight with Portland's Bobby Gross. He threw a punch. The punch missed Gross, but it accidentally nicked his own teammate, Doug Collins. Then Portland's enforcer, Maurice Lucas, hit Dawkins from behind. The two big men squared off at center court. Fans rushed onto the floor. The scene became chaos. Players, coaches, and fans all swirled together in one wild moment. In the end, both Dawkins and Lucas were ejected from the game. It was one of the most heated fights the finals had ever seen, but the worst part for Dawkins happened after he left the court. His anger had nowhere to go in the locker room. He let it all out. He tore a toilet right off the wall. He damaged a metal locker stall. The rage that had built up inside him broke loose on everything around him. It was a frightening show of how deep his feelings ran that night, and underneath that anger was something painful. Dawkins felt that his own teammates had let him down. He was furious that no one came to back him up during the fight. He noted that while he was being attacked, Julius Erving sat on the floor and George McGinnis stood by and did nothing. He felt alone in a moment when he needed his team the most. That feeling of being unsupported cut deep, and it pointed to a team that was not as close as it looked from the outside. There was an even deeper layer to all of this. Dawkins lived and played inside a world with a clear racial double standard, and he knew it. He saw how black players were treated when they spoke their minds or played with flair. He believed they faced harsh backlash for it. He believed they even risked being pushed out of the league for being themselves. White players, he felt, were given far more room to act as they pleased. The same neon suits, the same loud talk, the same big personality were judged more harshly because of who he was. He wrote about this later in his own life. In his 2003 book, called Chocolate Thunder, written with Charlie Rosen, he spoke openly about the racism, the drugs, and the partying that marked the era he played in. It was a truth he carried with him. It shaped how the world saw his potential, his style, and his choices. By 1982, the patience in the Philadelphia front office had run out. The team had waited for 7 years for Dawkins to become the player they imagined in their minds. They were tired of waiting. The owner, Harold Katz, was blunt about his frustration. He did not care about what he called the Lovetron stuff. He did not care about one-handed rebounds. He was unhappy with Dawkins' rebounding numbers and his constant foul trouble. He wanted Dawkins to play like a man, in his words. The flash that fans loved was the very thing the front office had grown tired of. A general manager named Pat Williams had voiced a similar feeling earlier. He said Dawkins treated his career like a big lark. He felt that Dawkins did not take the serious business of pro basketball seriously enough. There was a gap between how Dawkins saw the game, full of joy and play, and how the front office saw it, as a hard business to win. That gap never closed, so the team made its move. In 1982, the 76ers traded Darryl Dawkins to the New Jersey Nets. After 7 seasons, the era of Chocolate Thunder in Philadelphia was over. To fill the hole he left, the team made a huge trade. They brought in the reigning MVP, Moses Malone, from the Houston Rockets. They wanted to swap Dawkins' beautiful style for Malone's pure, relentless production. This was not just a feeling, it was backed by numbers, even by early computer calculations. The projections said that replacing the pair of Dawkins and Caldwell Jones with Malone would add 337 offensive rebounds. That would create 1,396 more points over a full season. And the math turned out to be right. Malone reached Dawkins' full season total of offensive rebounds in just his 40th game as a 76er. He did in 40 games what had taken Dawkins a whole year. The results on the court were just as clear. In their 1982 finals loss, the Sixers had been out-rebounded by 6 boards a game on average. But after they added Malone, things flipped. In the 1983 finals, they finished +5 in rebounding. That was a swing of 12. 6 rebounds a game from one year to the next. With that edge, Philadelphia swept the Los Angeles Lakers and won the championship. Julius Erving saw the difference between the two eras with his own eyes. He said the Dawkins-era team was a pretty team that focused on style. But the Malone era was different. With Malone, bodies flew across the court. The team won games without always looking good doing it. Maurice Cheeks agreed. He said Malone brought a needed aggressiveness to the whole roster. Erving had also once noted that Dawkins had a withering appetite for boring, repetitive practice. Dawkins did not see the point in doing a move 500 times once he had shown he could do it. To him, that kind of practice felt like a waste. He had proven he could make the move, so why grind it over and over? It was a fair question in his mind, even if his coaches saw it as a flaw. But here's the part that matters most. This story does not erase Darryl Dawkins. It shows the difference between production and impact. Moses Malone put up huge numbers and helped Philadelphia win a title. That is true, and it is great. But Dawkins had already changed the game in ways that numbers cannot measure. He had changed the culture. He had changed the style. He had changed the very equipment the game was played with. A title is one kind of legacy. Changing the sport itself is another. Dawkins owned that second kind, and no trade could take it from him. In New Jersey, Dawkins found some of his best basketball. The change of scene gave him a fresh start. With the Nets, he had stronger scoring years than he ever had in Philadelphia. In the 1983 to 1984 season, he reached a career high of 16, 8 points a game. He was a real offensive force now, not just a man of potential. Across his time with the Nets, he averaged more than 14 points a game, the best stretch of scoring in his whole career. For a while, the player that everyone had dreamed about began to show up on the court night after night. The talent that scouts had seen all those years ago was finally on full display. But the same troubles that followed him before did not fully disappear. Foul trouble still hurt him. He had led the league in fouls more than once in his career, and fouls kept him off the floor at key moments. Worse than that, major injuries began to take their toll. His body, once so powerful, started to break down. The very frame that made him a giant also carried a heavy cost. Slowly, the injuries chipped away at the player he had become. After his big years in New Jersey, his career began to fade. He had short stops with the Utah Jazz and the Detroit Pistons. By then, his impact on the court was small. From 1987 to 1989, he averaged under 2 points a game. The man who once shattered backboards was now coming off the bench for brief minutes. It was a quiet end to a loud career. The injuries had taken too much. The body that had once seemed unbreakable could not keep up anymore. His time in Detroit gave us a few more honest opinions, because Dawkins never stopped speaking his mind. He did not agree with the team's choice to trade Adrian Dantley. He watched the way the team worked and noticed a pattern. He felt that players who did not get along with Isaiah Thomas were quickly moved out. He shared his views on his teammates too. He called Rick Mahorn a misunderstood nice guy. He called Bill Laimbeer a cheap player. He even said he once hit Laimbeer with a kidney punch that left him afraid of Dawkins in later games. Even near the end, Dawkins was still the loud, honest force he had always been. When his NBA days were done, his story did not end. It opened a new chapter. He played overseas in Italy for several seasons. He even said that he managed to break 2 of the new spring-loaded rims while he was there. He did it by pulling the rim from the side, getting around its front collapsing design. Even the rim built to survive power dunkers was not fully safe from Darryl Dawkins. After Italy, he became something even bigger than a player. He became a beloved global ambassador for the sport. He coached minor league teams. He worked with the NBA's youth programs around the world. He spread the joy of basketball to new places and new fans. The same warmth that filled locker rooms now reached children far from home. He was no longer the young giant chasing potential. He had become a teacher and a friend to the game itself. One special moment came in 1999. He served as a player coach for the Winnipeg Cyclone. He led the team to a record of 22 wins and 12 losses. For that work, he earned Co-Coach of the Year honors. He was not just a name from the past. He was a leader who could still shape a team and help others win. And through it all, people remembered how he made them feel. He had a booming laugh that filled a room. He had a massive handshake that swallowed up the hand of anyone he greeted. He used his humor to put people at ease wherever he went. He had a gift for making others feel welcome and happy. That gift never faded, no matter how his game changed over the years. Sadly, the story has a heartbreaking turn. On August 27, 2015, Darryl Dawkins died of a heart attack. He was only 58 years old. A man so full of life and laughter was gone far too soon. The news brought sadness across the world of basketball and beyond. The tributes poured in from the people who knew him. One of the most touching came from Karl Anthony Towns, a younger star who called Dawkins Uncle Darryl. Towns thanked him for the constant encouragement and guidance he gave. He credited Dawkins with helping him keep his childhood promise of reaching the NBA. That is what Dawkins did for the next generation. He did not just leave behind dunks. He left behind people he had lifted up along the way. His death was part of a larger and troubling pattern. Just 17 days later, Moses Malone died of a heart attack at age 60. The two men, once rivals on the glass, passed away within weeks of each other. Their deaths, along with the earlier heart-related death of former 76er Caldwell Jones, drew national attention to the heart health of retired NBA big men. People began to ask hard questions about why so many giants were dying young. At least 53 retired NBA players have died from heart disease since the year 2000. More than 30 of those deaths happened to men under the age of 70. It is a sobering truth about the cost of a giant's body over a long life. Health experts pointed to a few reasons for this. Elite athletes often carry a feeling of invincibility from their playing days. That feeling can lead them to skip the regular heart checkups they need as they grow older. For very tall men, the problem runs even deeper. Carrying so much height and muscle over a lifetime puts heavy strain on the heart and body. Larry Bird spoke about this hard truth himself. He said he often warns his wife that few 7-footers live past the age of 75. He knew that giant bodies often come with a shorter time on this earth. But we should not let the sadness be the final word. That is not how Darryl Dawkins would want to be remembered. He was not just a player with unfinished potential. He was a force who made basketball louder, safer, freer, and more fun. He changed the rim with his bare strength. He inspired Shaquille O'Neal, who proudly called himself one of his sons. He scared defenders and thrilled crowds. He named his dunks and made the whole world smile. And everywhere he went, he left behind laughter and joy. When the legends were asked about him, they did not remember a failure. They remembered a giant who was impossible to forget. A man who played the game his own way and changed it forever. He took a heavy word like potential and turned it into something greater than the people who used it ever understood. That is the legacy of Chocolate Thunder, a giant whose raw force the game itself can never truly forget.